Africa, the cradle of humanity, the mother of civilizations, and the land where the earth itself is heavy with treasure. Gold deep in South Africa's rock, oil beneath the Gulf of Guinea, cocoa swaying on the trees of West Africa, diamonds glistening in the rivers of Botswana. Africa's soil hosts 30% of the world's mineral reserves, 8% of its natural gas, 12% of its oil, 70% of the world's cocoa, and yet the continent is home to some of the poorest people on earth. That contradiction is not accidental, it is designed. But it is a question too heavy to ignore. If Africa is so rich, why are so many of our children so poor? This is not just about economics. This is about history, power, and the decisions that shape our future. Today, we strip away the glitter, the perfume, and the corporate press releases to ask a simple but dangerous question.
Strength of Africa TV presents
Arise about children of the sun. Our story is not over, it's just begun. From Timbuktu to the streets of Soweto, Africa speaks and the world must echo. Strength of Africa, we stand strong. United, like the truth, we break the wall.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Depending on where you are at this moment, I'm your host, Adebayo Oladokun, and this is Strength of Africa TV, where truth meets courage, where the past is reawakened, and the future of the motherland is reclaimed. Today's episode is titled, Who Really Owns Africa's Gold, Oil, and Diamonds? Economists call it the resource paradox, the strange reality that countries with abundant natural resources often have slower economic growth, weaker democracies, and higher inequality than resource-poor nations. Take the Democratic Republic of Congo as an example. Beneath its soil lies over $24 trillion in untapped mineral wealth, cobalt, copper, diamonds, and gold. Yet, it ranks near the bottom of the UN's Human Development Index. Foreign corporations control large parts of the mining sector. Revenues are siphoned off through offshore accounts. Local communities see little beyond environmental damage and displacement. If you own the soil, but not the contract, you own nothing at all. This is not new. From the colonial carve-up at the Berlin Conference of 1884 to modern corporate mining contracts, resource ownership has been shaped by power, not fairness. Let's start with the gold, the shiny cause, the ultimate symbol of wealth. South Africa was once the world's top producer, with Waterstrand Basin holding 40% of all gold ever mined. But most of that gold's value didn't stay in Johannesburg or Soweto. Under apartheid, black miners earned a fraction of what the precious metal sold for in London or New York. Foreign-owned companies like Anglo-American dominated the sector. Today, gold still flows out legally through exports and illegally through smuggling routes into Dubai and Switzerland. In Ghana, small-scale miners often sell to middlemen who underprice their gold, which is then laundered into the global supply chain. The key issue is not just who digs the gold, it is who sets the price, who refines it, and who sells it to the final consumer. Now to oil, the black gold, but white profits. Nigeria, Angola, Libya, Africa is rich in oil. Nigeria alone has earned over $600 billion from oil exports since the 1960s. But look at its infrastructure, its electricity supply, its schools, and you wonder where that money went. Multinational oil giants like Shell, ExxonMobil, and Total Energies often operate under production sharing agreements, PSA, where they recoup costs first, then split profits with the host nation. In practice, That can mean billions living before locals see much benefits. Shell and other oil giants extract billions from the region. Meanwhile, oil spills have destroyed farmlands and fishing waters, leaving locals without livelihoods. Compensation battles drag on for decades in court. And then there is corruption. Oil wealth has fueled political patronage, rent-seeking, and in some cases, armed conflicts, the Biafran conflict and Libyan militia violence. Now to cocoa, the bitter side of sweetness. Every chocolate bar you've eaten likely contains cocoa from Africa. Ghana and Ivory Coast produce over 60% of the world's supply. But cocoa farmers earned an average of less than $1 a day. Why? Because raw cocoa prices are set in commodity markets in London and in New York, far from African soil. The real money is in processing and branding, sectors dominated by Western corporations like Nestle, Mars, and Mondelez. Ghana and Ivory Coast have tried to fight back, introducing a living income differential premium for their cocoa, but global buyers push back, threatening to take their business elsewhere. So sad. On our way to diamonds, brilliance and blood. Diamonds have a sparkling image, engagement rings, red carpets, but they've also funded brutal wars. From Sierra Leone's civil conflicts to Angola's rebel uprisings, the phrase blood diamonds became infamous because thousands lost their lives so others could sparkle at weddings. Botswana offers a different story. A partnership with De Beers has kept more diamond profits at home, funding free education and healthcare. But even here, most cutting and polishing, the high-value stage, happens overseas, in Antwerp, in Tel Aviv, in Mumbai. A rough diamond in Sierra Leone may fetch $100. Once cut and polished, that same stone sells for $10,000. That is brilliance and theft. Now to the big question. Who really owns our resources? Ownership is layered. There is legal ownership, who owns the mining or drilling rights. There is economic ownership, who earns the biggest share of profits. And there is practical control, who can actually decide what happens on the ground. In much of Africa, legal rights are granted through government-issued licenses. But governments under pressure or in debt often sign long-term deals. This is where we talk about forward contracts or future trading that lock them into unfavorable terms. Example, in Guinea, a massive bauxite deal gave foreign firms decade-long rights at fixed royalty rates. Even if global prices soared, the economic winners are often foreign shareholders, international banks, and commodity traders. Meanwhile, local communities deal with environmental damage, displacement, and unstable markets. You can own the mine on paper, but if you can't change the contract, you don't own the wealth. But it doesn't have to be this way. Countries like Botswana and Namibia show that resource nationalism, keeping more of the value chain at home, can work. Local refining, stronger tax regimes, and transparent contracts can turn extractive wealth into lasting development. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, could be a game changer, enabling cross-border value chains so that minerals mined in one country are processed in another, staying on the continent before being exported. Digital tools like blockchain are also emerging to trace resources from mine to market, reducing smuggling and price manipulation. Gold, oil, cocoa, diamonds. They are part of Africa's story, but they don't have to be its cause. Ownership is more than a legal contract. It's about who benefits, who decides, and who bears the cost. As new generations rise, with sharper voices, stronger networks, and bolder visions, the fight for true ownership is far from over. The world is watching, but more importantly, Africa is watching itself. Africa is not poor. Africa is rich in land, in people, in resources, and in imagination. But the wealth beneath our feet means nothing unless it feeds the ants above the soil. The story of gold, oil, cocoa, and diamonds is still being written, and the next chapter belongs to us. To every listener across the continent and in the diaspora, own your story, guard your land, know your worth. I still remain your host, Adebayo Oladokun, and this has been Strength of Africa TV production. If you found value in this conversation, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Deezer. Watch out for the next episode. You don't want to miss it. Until then, tell your own story, because Africa's future is written in African ink. Stay rooted, stay bold, stay Africa. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next episode. Bye.
Rise about children of the sun. Our story's not over, it's just begun. From Timbuktu to the streets of Soweto, Africa speaks and the world must echo. Strength of Africa, we stand.